Go.
All right, we are now live on Facebook. So welcome everyone. And I do see we have a couple of people here on the Zoom. Hello, welcome, good evening. If you have any questions for any of the panelists tonight or for Carla, feel free to chat them either in the Zoom chat or the Q&A, or just comment below on the Facebook Live. We'll be monitoring the comments there as well. So again, thank you so much for joining us. And I am excited to introduce you to Carla Bailey Smith, who is our Democratic candidate for Illinois District 88 State Rep. Carla?
Thank you. And as always, Kelsey, thank you for helping us get on Facebook Live and for watching the chat and the questions for us. Tonight, we're taking time to look at how the pandemic impacted people who were not prepared for what happened, who needed help, and people who were left out of resources such as unemployment and stimulus money. My first guest tonight is Erin Brown, who lives in Tazewell County, and that's part of the 88th District. The 88th District runs along kind of the top of Tazewell County and up the I-74 corridor. It includes Mackinac, Morton, Washington, and Groveland, and a little tiny bit of East Pekin.
And East Peoria.
East Peoria, and a tiny bit of East Peoria. Erin is one of the mutual aid organizers in Tazewell, and also is part of the steering committee of 100 plus people who care in Tazewell County. Thank you for joining us, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great. So let's talk about mutual aid first. So tell us what that means, how it works, and give us an idea about the people who need help and also the people who are giving help.
Okay, I would love to. All right, first of all, I want to say our motto, this is pretty much international. The motto is solidarity, not charity. And I find that that's very important in this area because a lot of folks who have spent their whole adult lives, and sometimes even since childhood, as workers who are now struggling to make ends meet, they don't want to feel like they're accepting charity. It embarrasses and it makes them feel ashamed. So what we ask is whenever somebody needs items, they tend to be pretty embarrassed and apologetic about it. And what I say is, but I need volunteers. And then I talk to them about ways they can volunteer, or another person, not just me, but we'll talk to them about ways they can volunteer. And a lot of them realize they already are volunteering. They are running errands for their neighbors. They are going out and cutting the grass maybe for someone who has disabling conditions. They're doing wellness checks on folks. So these are all parts of mutual aid. It's not just getting items that you might need. There's more to it than that. Now, what we cannot do, we're not Carla, you'll know this, 501c3. That's
right. So you're not an official charity organization, okay?
Correct. We're not one of those, so we cannot accept cash donations.
Okay.
However, we can put people in contact with one another. Let's say, for example, somebody would like to just help out another person with cash. I can say, hey, this person over here could use a little extra. Or perhaps I can say, like, for example, one gentleman, he wanted to give some cash. And I said, we are in need of some baby formula. So is it possible that somebody could go purchase this baby formula for you? And then you can donate that for us, because he isn't able to go and do his own purchases either. So these are, it's like everyone who's receiving assistance is also providing assistance. And I think that really helps folks self-esteem that way. Anyway, anything else?
That makes sense. Right, so you talked about the money. That was a question I was going to ask, and you went ahead and answered it for me. So now I'm looking through my notes and trying to find out what was
Okay.
So, right. The 100 plus people who care. So
Yes.
tell us about that. What is that organization? And you said that I think some of the same people are part of both.
Oh, yeah.
groups?
Yeah. There's overlap for sure. The 100 plus people who care is, let's see, that is either national or international as well. And what happens is, depending upon the area, for example, the United States, where people live, they'll either donate $100 per quarter, or they will donate, where we live is $50 per quarter, because
Okay.
so it's like every 3 months we meet, and we vote on a 501c3. We vote on a nonprofit in the area, Tazewell County, and then everybody just gives all their money to writes a check to that particular nonprofit. So that way they get a big boost all at once, instead of just getting a little bit of donations here and there over the year. And we actually only formed this group. It was in, February. And so we only had our first meeting before the shelter in place started. So our very first meeting, it was kind of wonderful. Someone came to the meeting, and people came and they just nominated different charitable organizations. And one gentleman let us know about what at that time was called the Pekin Community Center. It had not yet opened, and he explained what the mission of that was, and that's what where we selected to give all of our checks. Well, it turns out they are actually getting off the ground and opening, and I believe they're changing the name to Pekin Day Shelter and Resource Center. And folks can come in, they can get a shower, they can cool off if it's hot outside, they can warm up if it's cold outside. And this is not, it's for folks who are experiencing homelessness, but then there are also folks that perhaps they don't have hot water at home, or so there's another reason they may need to be there. And there'll be other services provided as well to help folks with whatever their needs might be that day at the center. So we're really proud that's where our money went for 100 plus the first time. And then this time, because we couldn't meet in person, we just broke our own rule and just said, everybody give your money wherever you want to, and just kind of let us know where you're going to decide to donate. So
yeah.
All right. Any other questions about that?
Well, I'd like for Kelsey to share your flyer. So if we have, for the mutual aid. So if there's anybody in Tazewell County that is interested, here's the information. And I suppose I can see the email address and the phone number.
Correct.
So that's really helpful.
Yeah, and we will eventually get a public Facebook page. We just don't have one yet. We just haven't done it. We've done it pretty old school, just email and phone. So
yeah, okay. And are there so Kelsey, are there any questions or any comments on Facebook about anything that we've discussed so far?
Thanks, Carla. There currently aren't any questions, but reminder, if you are watching us on Facebook Live, you can comment on the live post and we will answer any questions or comments you may have there. Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, great. Okay, so next we have Megan Reha from Bloomington Normal, who is one of the mutual aid organizers here. So thank you for joining us, Megan, and tell us what you do here in Bloomington. And were you already doing work like this, or did you just jump in because of the pandemic?
Hey, Carla. I live in Bloomington. My day job is I'm an engineer for a wind energy consulting company, and the mutual aid work that I've been involved in Bloomington started with another friend, Tori Murray, posting on Facebook that if people needed someone to run errands for them, that they could contact her and she would help. And so I reached out to her and said, hey, I was actually in quarantine myself at the time because I had been traveling through some of the airports that were potential hotspots early on. And so I said, I'm here to help, but I need to stay home for the time being. And that we worked together then that I sort of handled the dispatching side of things, we ended up with a phone number primarily that folks could call and leave messages for whatever their needs were. I handled the calls, and then she handled the organizing folks to run errands. And the majority of people who reached out to us for help tended to be older neighbors who had underlying health conditions and didn't feel safe going out to the grocery store or to run errands. And so that's the primary role that we served in this community, is being able to help them with groceries or pharmacy errands, medication, that kind of thing.
Right. Did you have people calling you and telling you that they couldn't pay their rent or they couldn't pay their bills and asking for help with that or directions to agencies?
Yeah, so early on, we did get a number of people who, not so much about rent, but definitely food insecurity, people who wanted help with groceries, but had no money to pay for them. And at that point, we were able to connect them with other resources in the community that were doing deliveries from food banks, that were doing deliveries from other service agencies. And so we were able to sort of serve as a resourcing connecting place for them. Right.
And Erin, did you find the same thing? Did you have people calling who were food insecure in Tazewell County?
Actually, not so much, and I think that's because there are a whole lot of food banks around here. And in fact, the food banks, I interact with people at the food banks, and most of those people weren't really showing up to get stuff, but they were surprised. So it seems that was less of a concern than diapers. Any kind of hygiene supplies seem to be a much greater concern. Or, as Megan said, having errands run, pharmacy, grocery shopping, that sort of thing.
Right. So, Erin, in Tazewell, you did not find yourself in your group of people picking up food from food banks and delivering it. But Megan, you said that.
Oh no, that happened.
You were doing that. Okay.
Yeah, they just weren't necessarily asking me for food.
Right. And did either of you have people calling about rent, and were you able to direct them to people who could help them with rent or bills?
I did not.
Okay.
We haven't had many of those either.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So another question I had, do you think there are any actions that the local or state government could take to expand support systems?
So today we've entered stage 4 where people are free to go out or being invited to go out on a more normal basis, and talking with folks who have been relying on us for their errands. The number one thing that would be important and helpful to them is for local and state governments to require mask wearing. Absolutely require mask wearing.
Right.
Right.
That is the only way that they will feel comfortable going in, to the grocery store, even during restricted or senior hours.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. That is, I'm so glad you brought that up, because a lot of folks haven't gone and done things because they are at high risk if they should contract this of contracting it, or if they contracted it, of getting very ill and passing away. And this is terrifying to think of having to go out again when people are not wearing masks.
Yep.
So
the other
I
thing,
did want to mention one thing that I neglected to say. Something that I have had requests for is naloxone kits.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite understand.
Naloxone, Narcan is the brand name.
Oh,
opioid.
okay.
Yeah. So I've had requests for that as well.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's as great a need in McLean, but yeah, we get those requests here.
That's a very interesting question. I don't know that, so I'm going to find out. Megan, did you come across anything like that in your work?
No, that wasn't anything that we encountered. The one thing that I would add, in our in the circle that reached out to us and that we've connected with, many of them relied on other volunteer organizations before the pandemic occurred.
Right.
And many of those organizations, the volunteers who staff them, like Peace Meals and other groups, those people, the volunteers, are what I would call the younger retirees in their 50s and 60s who are still more vulnerable populations. And so when they had to stop doing their volunteer role for their own safety, that left older elders in our community without access to support that they really relied on.
Right.
So people who had part-time caregivers, paid caregivers, but who had their own respiratory illnesses or were older, then had to stop coming and helping some of our folks. So
right.
that was a place where the system that we have right now really broke down.
Okay. Yeah, right. So a lot of our caregivers are maybe recently retired people. So maybe people in their 60s, but then when we have a pandemic like this, then we need to be ready with a different workforce, as it were, to replace those people. All right. Before I move on to Robert, Kelsey, are there any questions or comments?
Thanks, Carla. Yes, Stephanie commented on the Facebook Live, and Stephanie asked, what are the current needs that you're seeing now, and how have you seen that change over time?
I'm primarily getting requests for products that can't be purchased with a link card. So that's going to be soaps, toilet paper. I'm trying to think.
Wait, you can't purchase toilet paper with a link card?
No.
Can't eat toilet paper.
All right. That's something I can add to my state legislative agenda.
Well, I will just
menstrual hygiene items.
I will just add to what Erin is saying, and that not being able, people who have link cards that don't feel safe going to a store are absolutely cut out of the loop here.
Right.
Absolutely cut out, and that system really needs
to get a light turned on. I'm sorry.
You can't. So a person with a link card can't give their link card to somebody else to use? Is there some unique ID?
There's a PIN number. Yeah, there's a PIN number that has to be entered at the time of purchase. And
I'm so sorry. I'm screwing this up.
That's right.
Right,
so in the last month of our work, we have had some really gracious volunteers who have offered to take people who need to pay for groceries with their link card to the 2 locations that are able to accept them for curbside pickup. So placing an online order and then taking that individual to use their individual link card for a curbside pickup. But that is really, really like it's an unnecessary barrier to people needing food, getting the food that they need.
Right. where in Bloomington are, which two places in Bloomington Normal are doing curbside with Link?
So both Walmart locations in West Bloomington and Normal, and the Kroger on Oakland are the places that will accept a Link card for curbside pickup.
Okay. But no
I don't know
toilet
of anywhere.
paper and no personal hygiene products can be
Right.
No
purchased
toilet
with a
paper,
Link
no
card.
tampons.
Right.
Wow. Okay.
No
All right.
diapers.
So even before we started talking to Robert, this is a successful town hall for me because I've learned something, and that's why I do these.
Oh, good.
So that I
Good.
learn what the needs are of our district and what difference I can make in the state legislature, and that is something that we need to correct. All right. Robert Garcia is also a Bloomington resident, and he does work with the mutual aid group, but Robert also works with our immigrant community. So thank you, Robert, for coming to talk to us tonight about your work, which is a little bit different.
Sure. Yeah, no, I thank you, Carla, first for putting these events together, for having these discussions with the public, for encouraging people to vote. And I think these discussions educate the public on why it's important to vote. So we're very appreciative of your efforts. Thank you for having me. So yeah, I work as a community navigator for the Immigration Project. We operate in both Champaign County and McLean County. So we have folks here in Bloomington Normal, we have folks in Champaign-Urbana that do the same thing. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the groups that were left out, and then I'll talk about, kind of how our community is responding, if that's okay. And if you have any questions or want to direct the conversation anywhere, let me know. So originally Congress, had this wonderful debate. They came up with this CARES Act, which was supposed to provide stimulus checks to families to help them recover during this historic recession, and also to stimulate the economy, to help business owners and the wealthy that were concerned about losing profits. So unfortunately, the administration was very careful to target certain communities and intentionally leave them out. And the immigrant community was one of them. So there were about 30 million people that were left out of those stimulus payments, 15 million in immigrant families, and there were about 5 million children that were left out of this so-called CARES Act. And what's important to note is that of those 5 million children, 85% are actually American citizens.
Yeah.
So as the Trump administration targeted immigrants, the casualty is American children were left out because someone in their family happened to be an immigrant. And so this is the end result. The impact is that even if you're related to somebody who's an immigrant, if you have one immigrant parent, if you have, you were purposely targeted, and it was written in there for these particular classifications as defined by the government, that these were, non-resident aliens and they shouldn't be included, and their children or whatever. So there was no care given to, well, if they're American citizens in their family, they shouldn't be hurt. If you had a family member that was an immigrant, your entire family was excluded. It's very situation. So yeah, the impact to the immigrant community was very difficult because they already have vulnerabilities where they're not feeling safe to contact authorities when they're having an emergency. We're in the middle of a pandemic, afraid to seek medical help. They don't have aid. They don't qualify for aid. And then you have this stimulus program that's supposed to help, and everyone was included except for the folks that are most vulnerable, that already were very limited in what they could access. They don't qualify for services. They don't have a Link card. Okay, they can't qualify for a lot of these services, unemployment, et cetera. So a lot of these folks, especially those that didn't meet the classifications that the government set out, were already in a bad situation, and unfortunately, where that situation was worsened when everybody got some assistance but them. So at a high level,
they're taxpayers too. That's
and that's important.
I
because
mean,
there's this false narrative that they don't pay taxes, and it's not true. A lot of these immigrants, most of these immigrants, they work, they're paying into taxes for services, social services that they themselves are not eligible to benefit from. So we're actually benefiting, us, the citizens are benefiting from their taxes, and their children don't benefit. They're not eligible for some of these social services. They pay into Social Security, all of that's taken out. But when they retire, they don't get to claim Social Security unless they magically have become citizens, full citizens. So it's a bad situation, and it doesn't help that you have false narrative propaganda from the right wing saying, oh, they don't pay taxes, they're freeloading, and it's absolutely factually incorrect. And so that's just, it makes it all the more difficult. But you're right, they do pay taxes, they don't get to benefit. It's a bad situation. So in general, and I'm just going to share, a few facts, because, you have this effort to say, oh, we're being really careful so that only people who truly qualify and truly are eligible should receive this money. And yet that same program sent check payments to, we're hearing reports as of this morning, it was maybe 1 million different checks were mailed out to people who were deceased, a total of $1.4 billion that was been wasted, So this wasn't about, hey, let's be careful, let's not overspend, waste money. It was a mean-spirited attack on the community is what it was. It was very careful and targeted. And that's important to note, because if they were really careful about wasteful, they wouldn't say, hey, let's send it to 1 million dead people and throw away $1.4 billion. That's money that could have gone to these hardworking immigrants that were unfortunately targeted in such a mean way. There's two groups that were correctly left out of the CARES Act because of their income, whether you're head of household or married couples. I'm not going to focus on those. Those are AGI specific, 136,500 head of household, married couple AGI over 198. These are folks that are high earners. They should be left out. But then there were two other groups that really were left out that I want to call out, and then I'll drill down on the last group. Children over 16 and college students under 24. You can get into all the dynamics as to why some of the GOP wanted these folks to be excluded. It's wrong. You can go read up on all the crazy narratives. But again, these are folks that should have not been targeted. Some of these are still young. They're teenagers. Some of them are young adults. They don't have other financial means. Some of them are still living at home because the economy is so bad and we're in the middle of a historic recession. So the logic that some people will try to throw and spin behind it is just ridiculous. They should have been excluded, but a lot of them were. And then you have, of course, the non-resident alien as defined by the US government. And that's where it got really tricky. And I won't go into too much detail here because I know we've done some of these live videos in the immigration project where we drill down in a lot more detail about whether you have an A number or a TPS number or no ID number yet, or social security number, et cetera. So I won't go into all that detail, but there are several categories in that one big bucket of what is a non-resident, what is an alien. Some have a temporary protection status number, some have an alien registration number, some have a foreign ITN, some have, and some of course eventually get a social security number. So there's a lot of different groups that fall into that bucket. So that's kind of the high level overview of the people that were targeted and left out, unfortunately. Again, these are folks that are already vulnerable. On the flip side, I do want to highlight that we just had a court ruling. I know it's a little bit off topic, but I'm getting there, I promise, to the good news. So there was a Supreme Court ruling that said that the DACA program cannot just be overturned by Trump on some arbitrary decision. There has to be some good substantial merit for something like that to come to an end. And of course the government couldn't provide any basis. They just wanted to end it because they don't like immigrants. And again, we're talking DACA. So we're talking children who had no say in being here, children who have no other home. This is all they know is the US. They have been raised American, and some of them didn't even know they weren't undocumented until they went off, tried to get into college. And that was the first time their parents had to tell them, hey, mijo, mija, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you, you're not actually a citizen. And so they go 18 years of their life thinking they were and find out later they're not. So there's a lot of those discussions that have been happening. Anyways, the good news is the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the DACA recipients. The bad news is that within the past few years, and I don't remember if it was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, but very recently, sometime within the last 4 years, 3 years, the Trump administration decided to start charging a $500 application fee for these individuals, for these children to apply. So now, anytime the government's, in the past when they had these programs, say, okay, fine, we'll honor the programs, it's the law, but then they'll throw in additional barriers on purpose. That fee was never there before, or a fee's there and it was $5, $25, and they'll make it something ridiculous because they know these folks don't have $500. And so they'll do that just to try to add more barriers and be able to deport people. The good news is, and I'm going to share it here, is we have on our council one of our alderwomen, Councilwoman Jen Carrillo, who has started a local fundraiser, at least for McLean County, to help cover those DACA government bills, including the $500 application fee. So I want to share that in the chat and hope that if anybody's out there watching or seeing this, that if you're interested in helping these individuals, you can. And I'll post it in English and Spanish in case anyone sees this. Si alguien lo ve en
Yeah,
español.
thanks, Robert. And yeah, once you get it in
Thank
the
you,
chat,
Robert.
then Kelsey can cut and paste it and put it in the Facebook Live.
Okay, and I'm sorry, I accidentally sent it to just Kelsey instead of everybody. My bad. Sorry. Do you want me to
Kelsey,
resend it?
she just sent it to us.
Oh, she did? Okay, thank you, Kelsey.
Yeah.
Sorry, I accidentally sent it privately to her. I didn't mean to do that. Sorry.
Okay.
So I'll try better. And then I'll just throw in the contact information. In addition, to finding financial resources through the community when the government is not offering them. The Immigration Project can help with other stuff too. I mean, if there's anyone out there who's afraid, a lot of times these individuals don't know how to start, so they're afraid to inquire about their status. And that's why folks like me exist. So we're community navigators. So if anybody's out there and you know someone, that's what we volunteer to do. So we're a confidential source, an in-between intermediary that you can go to in a safe, confidential manner where we can talk, and then we can help connect you to the right resources without you having to worry about, oh, I'm afraid to call or show up at an office and worry that ICE is going to show up. So there are several of us, but if anybody's out there, I'll put my information here. I'll put the Immigration Project's info. Let me see if I can send it correctly.
Thank
this
you.
time. All panelists.
That's great. And if people wanted to go back and listen to your conversations with people from the Immigration Project, are those on their Facebook page?
Yeah, you can. There are. Just go to the Immigration Project on Facebook, and go to the videos page, and you can find. There's usually weekly videos that we do. We did several that focused on the pandemic, the economic impact, the stimulus programs, who was eligible, who was not. Unfortunately, most were not. But we kind of break all that down in detail. And I know Rodrigo and I did a couple, and Jen did one as well, focusing on DACA.
Right.
And there's my information again. If anybody's out there seeing this, if you know someone who's documented and is interested in just inquiring about resources or inquiring about how they can improve their standing with the government, you're always free to contact me and we can help navigate those conversations.
Robert, do you only work in McLean County?
I do, but there are counterparts that do the same thing in Champaign County. So we exist in both. We have offices.
Okay.
We have an office in Normal. We have an office in Champaign County. We have community navigators like me here, Rodrigo, and another team does the same thing in Champaign-Urbana. I don't know if they have teams outside of those two areas, but I know Champaign-Urbana and Blono, we have plenty of staff and volunteer to help.
All right. Well, there's another research project for me, is to find out about the immigrant community in Tazewell County and what support is available for them. And
kind of seems like at this point it's just neighbors looking out for each other. That's it.
Right.
I know there's been a lot of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, just
So,
people are looking out.
What we do, I'm also
I don't know how to put it. It's like they're people feel like, well, these are our people too.
Yes.
So
good.
yeah.
So even if they don't have a formal resource organization with funding and grants that are out there fighting for them locally at their local level, we do know your rights presentations. So I'm a know your rights trained presenter through the Immigration Project, and we do those in other communities as well. It doesn't have to be in the communities we serve. So we can go to Tazewell County or Peoria or Christian County, DeWitt County, Logan County, Sangamon County. We can go there, and any organization that wants, myself or another know your rights presenter, can at least give that information to them. It's not going to be focused on resources. It'll just be focused on staying safe and knowing your rights when you're dealing with
Okay.
ICE, if they ever approach.
Right.
So we're always happy to do that. We'll go anywhere in Central Illinois. At least I will.
Yeah, great. Now, recently, Bloomington City Council has made cash payments available to residents. My understanding is that you just need to be a resident. It's not based on any other criteria other than being a resident of Bloomington. And they have taken money from the CARES Act and allocated it, and it's not cash in hand, but if you show that you have rent due or bills, other utility bills, that you can apply to the city of Bloomington. And I believe I put the link in our documents. So Kelsey, there it is. So Kelsey's got it in our chat now. And that's something that was a long time coming. And I know that a large group of people really advocated hard to get this. And this speaks to voting on your local level, that your city council members are the ones who can make decisions like that. Now, I know that the ask was for cash being made available to residents earlier on from a Bloomington City emergency fund. And that never happened. We had to wait for the federal money to come through. But I honestly think that because week after week after week, people in Bloomington Normal, our advocates in Bloomington Normal, were pointing out people who had fallen through the cracks and pointing out that there are people who cannot pay their rent and they cannot pay their bills, and they don't have unemployment. They're not getting a stimulus check. And we're not just talking about immigrants, we're talking about, college students. Maybe somebody who was working, a cash in hand job and they didn't have a good way to apply for the unemployment benefits that were available. So it is important to vote responsibly and do your research on your candidates all the time. But at the local level, this is the support that can be given at a local level. And I'll say another thing that was hard fought in Bloomington and in Normal was a welcoming cities ordinance. A lot of the issues that Robert discussed are federal issues. So there, you're looking at your senators. Who are your senators? What do they support? Who are your members of Congress? So this is, right now, our area members of Congress are Rodney Davis and Darren LaHood. Look at their voting records. Look at what they support and what they don't support. And look at their opponents. Both of them have opponents this time who hopefully will support progressive, comprehensive immigration reform that takes humanity into consideration, because I think a lot of us feel like for the past 3.5 years, humanity has just gone out the window and been flushed.
Yeah, it's not just about the CARES Act. There are still people who look like me that are locked up in cages right now for the simple crime of seeking a better life. That inhumanity is still happening every day in this country, and our tax dollars are funding it for the profit of private detention centers. It's disgusting, and it's still happening.
Yes. So at the state level, we were able, state of Illinois was able to ban new private prisons. I'm sure there must be private prisons that already exist, but
I don't think there are in Illinois, are there?
Okay, maybe there aren't. What I remember is a push to ban private prisons so that we would not be having new detention centers built in the state of Illinois. So, you know, within the state, that's something that we can do to protect our residents. And our residents, our immigrant residents, they are part of our interconnectivity. You know, there's all kinds of jobs that they do, and I would like to see them supported better, and I would like to see comprehensive immigration reform. But comprehensive immigration reform has to be done at the federal level. The state can institute some protections, but not as much as we would like. You know, we can lobby our federal representatives to get children out of cages, but you know, we also and adults, right?
Yeah, there was a, you know, to the point about Illinois, you know, it's different in Illinois than it is nationally. There was a three-pronged package that the governor just signed within the past few days, that's supposed to ban private detention centers, allow the immigrants that have been falling through the cracks to apply for state financial aid instead. And then I think the third was to help protect from, it's to outlaw local law enforcement from working with ICE. So there is, at least in Illinois, a governor that is receptive to this, but certainly we need to elect folks like Carla to our state house to help us pass more humane reform policies around this issue, because there is stuff you can do at the state level and to combat some of the hate that we see in the federal legislation. But we have to vote for people.
Right.
Can I just make a plug for the fair tax? Vote yes,
Yes.
for fair tax.
Please
As a way to
do.
fund these important initiatives, we got to fund it with real money.
Go right ahead.
Not take it off the backs of people who are already struggling to make their ends meet.
Would you like to say more about the fair tax, or do you want me to take that?
That's my plug. That's my plug.
That's your plug. Don't take money off the backs of
people who are already struggling to make ends meet.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. Yes.
For most people, they're going to pay the same amount of tax. Their taxes are the only ones that are really going to see the increase in the fair tax are the top earners, the rich. This is really to help make them pay their fair share. There's a lot of campaigns out there right now spreading misinformation saying, they're going to raise your taxes, they're going to raise your taxes. It's BS. Most Illinoisans are not going to see an increase in their tax. It's literally focused on just the top earners. So we have to shut that false narrative.
I just want to weigh
right on, Robert.
On my experience I moved from Washington State a few years ago, where there is no income tax, there's only sales tax. And the sales tax in Washington State is, at the time, was 11%, which is exactly what the sales tax is in Bloomington Normal, where I also pay income tax.
Right.
And it is directly a result of our terrible tax system that cities and municipalities have to raise money locally on income, which penalizes the poorest people because they have to pay the same percentage as people who make way more, right? You're being taxed on your needs rather than your income.
Right.
And this is a chance for us to not penalize the wealthy, but to equalize the burden of caring for our shared communities, for our roads, for our schools, for our healthcare needs, right?
We have to also think about net worth. We think we have a lot of people around here with a negative net worth, and they're paying more than that for their taxes. I'm not making any sense here. And then you look at somebody with a lot more money and with a lot more that they own, a lot more money in the bank, and what they're paying in their taxes is like nothing to them. So I don't know. It gets very frustrated. So.
And I absolutely see it not as some kind of penalty, but these are the resources that we share, our communities, and it's fair to expect people to contribute in proportion to what they can, what they have in resources.
Yeah, exactly. We are going to talk about the economy on next week's town hall. I'm working on recruiting some economists to talk with us, and I absolutely am going to talk about the fair tax again, and I will keep talking about it as much as possible. And to reiterate that only people who earn $250,000 a year and more will see their taxes go up. Everybody else, it should stay the same or less. And I would say that the less you earn right now, you will see your taxes go down. And we will try to have some visual models ready next week to show that. And we'll talk more about the economy, about our shared economy, and how we can lift each other up, and I hope to talk about how higher wages is a good thing. Are there any questions or comments, Kelsey, that we should share before we say goodnight?
Thanks, Carla. There was a quick question. I thought I saw that the Immigration Project might be offering some COVID-19 cash assistance. Robert, is that true? And where would people go to find more information?
Yeah, the contact information I shared is the right place to start. There were some funds raised and put aside to help with that, separate from the doc application effort. So yes, if somebody is in dire assistance, those funds are limited, but they're there to help, and that's what they're there for those that were left out. So thank you for raising that. Thank you. Yes, that is true, and that is still available. And that contact information I shared there is the right place to go to reach out. If somebody out there is in that category, start right there.
Great. Anything else? Any other questions or comments?
That is all at this time. So again, just wanted to say thank you so much to all of our panelists for joining us, for everyone watching. And Carla, again, thank you for hosting these.
Thank you, Kelsey. Good night, everybody.